Hello, welcome to another motorcycling video. It's Monday the 20th of October 2025. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm off on a ride to where I can go for my morning run. So you'll see a section of this video where I've gone for my morning run, then come back to the bike and ridden some more. In this video I'm going to talk about integrity and specifically how that relates to the motor vehicle industry, but I'll get to that eventually, but I need to set the scene and give you some context first of all. So, when you see advertising on TV, if there are real people involved in the advertising rather than just somebody shouting at you to buy a product from an electrical retailer or something like that, you can be reasonably sure that the people that appear in the ad have been paid for their work. They're actors and it's fair and reasonable that they be paid for their work. Not every actor's making blockbuster movies and not every actor's got a TV series to work on. So some have to rely on making commercials in order to pay the bills and wait till the next big part comes along. When you see a celebrity in an advertisement on television or at the movies, you can be certain that they've been paid for their work as well, whether they're an actor or they're a sports person or a celebrity in some other area. You can be pretty certain that they've been paid for their work. And again, that seems to be a reasonable thing to do because the person's image and their name is being used to promote a product. They're doing it willingly, and sometimes they're paid in cash and kind. In other words, the product that's being sold, the people who make the product say, well, we'll pay you whatever your fee is and we'll give you a year's supply of vitamins or skin cream or coffee or whatever it is that they're advertising. And that all seems reasonable, and we know that that's the case. There's no mystery about it. We know that these people are actors and they're being paid. We then have now, in the internet age and in probably the last decade, we've had the rise of these people who are called influencers. I'm not sure how you get to be one, and I certainly don't have any desire to be one. But how they work is that these people have a presence on social media, either on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or some other social media. They have a presence and they have a lot of people who follow them. And because of that presence and because they have lots of people who follow them, companies and organisations and people who are trying to sell stuff come to these people, that is the influencers, and say, look, we'll give you our product for free, or we'll give you a year's supply of our product, whatever it is, babies, nappies or skincare cream or whatever it is that they're trying to flog. And if you make some posts, with the understanding that you will make some positive posts on your social media feeds about our product. Now, some of the platforms have rules that say if you have such an arrangement, you should declare it. The Australian Communications and Media Authority, or ACMA as it's known, I believe also has similar rules that say if you have commercial arrangements with people, you should declare those commercial arrangements so that your audience is aware that you have a commercial arrangement and you are being paid for what you're doing. We don't always know that with influencers, and as far as I can find out, there don't seem to be any drastic penalties in regard to the platforms, or certainly from ACMA, for somebody not declaring their commercial interests. And the problem there is that you don't know whether, if you see somebody promoting something in a social media feed, say on Facebook, you don't know whether they are one of these influencers that has been paid in cash or kind or both, or they're just somebody who found something really good and thought they'd like to tell everybody else about it. I admit myself that I have done a couple of product explanations, if you like. One was a case of I got a vlogging kit. It was given to me as a present by one of my children, and I did a video where I unpacked it and explained all the bits and pieces for it. I didn't pay for the thing. It was given to me as a gift by one of my children, and I certainly wasn't paid by the retailer to do so. I also did another one where I was given a multi-tool, like I forget what they're called, Knife Man or something like that, I think they're called, but mine wasn't one of those, but it was one of those sort of things. It's a tool that has screwdrivers and knives and pliers and God knows what else like that. And again, it was given to me as a gift by one of my children, and I did a video where I unboxed it and explained all the bits and pieces of it and so on. I wasn't paid by the retailer to do so, and I had no commercial arrangement with the retailer to promote it. I did it because I thought, well, this is a nice little thing, it's been given to me, I'll make a video about it. But the problem is with influencers, we don't know whether if they don't declare their interest, we don't know whether they are saying what they're saying as a genuine thing, that they genuinely believe that whatever product it is they're talking about is something that you should use because it's a good product, or they're doing it because somebody has paid them to do so. So it's important that people who have commercial arrangements with companies explain those. Now, what's this got to do with the motor vehicle industry? Well, it's this. As I've said in a number of other videos, watch a lot of videos on YouTube from people who test and report about cars. I've listed them before, and I'll say some of them again now. Car Source, Cars Guide, Car Sales, The Right Car, Chasing Cars, Ludicrous Feed, Auto Expert, Viking, the Electric Viking, and I've probably forgotten some others. I watch these videos for entertainment purposes, but I also watch them for research purposes in terms of understanding, well, what new cars are coming on the market, what models are coming on the market, what are the latest tech features that are coming in cars, what are the people who sound like they know what they're talking about saying about the cars, how are the cars that they're reporting, and there are a lot of Chinese cars, for example, being tested, how are they talking about them in terms of whether they're improving in their quality and their finish and so forth, with the idea that I'm not in the market for a new car at the moment. But if I were in the market for a new car, I would go to one of these reviews. I would go to these reviewers, the ones that I've talked about, and I would look at their reviews for the cars that I'm interested in, and I would see how they compare. The idea of these reviews, as I understand it, the way I see it, is that they've test-driven all the models, so you don't have to. You only have to test drive the model that you want to buy. So the idea is that you hope, and I certainly hope, that when the person doing the test drive of the vehicle gives their verdict about the car, that they're giving you an honest and fair and impartial view and an impartial account of the vehicle. And I am not suggesting that any of the people that I just mentioned aren't doing that. I have no evidence to suggest that. I have no information from any source and that they aren't doing that. But a little while ago, I made a video about a couple of journalists who had been given a particular vehicle by a manufacturer. I came across this information thanks to the ABC program Media Watch, and I explained that at the time. These two journalists separately were given the same vehicle by a particular manufacturer, and they were told, go away and test this car, and there are certain costs involved in getting to and from the testing area, which I understand the manufacturer paid for, which is a normal process, normal procedure, or normal thing in the motor vehicle testing industry. These two people tested these cars separately, and they gave their reports. Now that all sounds fair and above board and so on. What happened next is that the manufacturer approached both of the journalists and said to them, we would like to buy your footage. And both of the journalists separately agreed to sell their footage to the manufacturer. The manufacturer said they wanted to use the footage in promotional and advertising and marketing material. And as I said, that seems fair enough. You've made an arrangement. You can earn a quid from your work if you wish to. However, neither of the journalists declared the fact that they now had a commercial arrangement with that particular manufacturer. A commercial arrangement, that is, where they were paid for their work. Now, both the journalists, when they were approached by Media Watch and asked about this arrangement, insisted that the manufacturer nor their agents had no editorial input, had no input into what was said about the car, and that they were free to say whatever they like or whatever they wanted to say about the particular vehicle, and then they just made an arrangement to sell the footage afterwards. And as I said, referencing the other YouTubers that I watch, I have no information to suggest that that wasn't the case. I have no evidence, and as far as I can find out, no one else had any evidence to suggest that that was anything other than the truth. In other words, that any arrangement that there was an arrangement where the manufacturer had an influence over their report. But the problem was that neither of those journalists declared to their audience that they had this commercial arrangement. Now, I became aware again, thanks to Media Watch, of another similar arrangement where there was a person who tests motor cars for a living, writes reports, creates videos, that sort of thing about the cars. But this person also has a side business where they provide all sorts of, I guess the best word for it is PR services to the motor vehicle industry. Those services include making videos, doing photography, providing copy to support the photography, and copy to help promote and advertise and market vehicles. Now, it's almost inevitable that at some stage that person who tests cars is going to test a car made by a company for which they have already done paid work. Or it's almost inevitable that as a result of testing a car, a manufacturer is going to say, well, we like the report you wrote about our car. Now we'd like to approach you to do X, Y, or Z for us. Make videos for us, do photography for us, write some copy for our new latest model that's coming out next year or whatever. And so again, that arrangement was not declared to the audience. Now, why is this important? Well, in Australia we have this thing called the pub test. And the pub test basically is I go down the pub and I'm sitting around shooting the breeze with my mates and talking trash, talking rubbish as you do, and having a few drinks. And I say to one of my mates, I'm thinking about buying a new car and I think I'm going to buy this particular car, and I name the car. And I say, I saw a video last night where Joe Blow, or Josephine Blow for that matter, tested this car and said it was the best car they'd ever driven. Comfortable, reliable, fuel efficient, safe, everything you want in a car, it had it, and they gave it a rating of 9.5 out of 10. A pretty good car, you'd have to agree. And my mate says to me, well, you know that bloke's been paid by that company, don't you? What? Yeah, he's been paid by that company. Now that puts a different spin and a different hue on the report, doesn't it? If you've been paid by the company, whether it's to test that car or for some other work connected with the same business, that is motor vehicle business, it is inevitable that your audience is going to say, well, now I have to take your report with a grain of salt. So now I've laid out the problem. The problem is that there are people in the motor vehicle industry or in the motor testing industry who appear to be making commercial arrangements with the very people who supply cars to them for the purposes of testing and reviewing them. And it is my contention that that presents, at the very minimum, a conflict of interest that should be declared to the consumers of the content, that is the people who read the reports or the people who watch the videos. So what is the solution to this problem? What do I think should be done about it? This is my suggestion. This is my solution to it. People who review cars, they might only get a short period of time on a press day or a media day with the car. They might get 15 to 20 minutes with the car, for example. They want to make a short video, 15 to 20 minutes, that's engaging and interesting, and they don't want to spend the first couple of minutes talking about financial arrangements or disclosing commercial arrangements or suggesting conflicts of interest. What they should do is put on the screen something along the lines of financial disclosure in the description. Ludicrous Feed, for example, who's a gentleman with his wife that test electric vehicles and often get electric vehicles on long-term loans. He has sponsors for his channel. He announces who the sponsors are and their logos appear on the screen at the start of the video. He also puts a statement, financial disclosure, in the description. And if you want then to go into the description and read the financial disclosure, you're able to find out what are the terms and conditions under which he's been given that vehicle. Now, if you've only been given the vehicle for 15 or 20 minutes on a media day, your disclosure would be, we've had access to this vehicle for 15 or 20 minutes. We've been able to drive it on the pre-approved course. The manufacturer of the vehicle and its agents have no influence over what we say about the vehicle, and the footage that we film belongs to us. If you have the vehicle on a longer term loan, for example, you might have it for a week. I know that the fellow who has the Right Car channel, I think his name's Matt Campbell, he often talks about having had a car for a week. and he's been able to drive it around on the motorways, on the suburbs where he lives, and out on the open road, testing it in all sorts of conditions. He would then, in his disclosure statement, state, well, I've been given this vehicle by X manufacturer for a period of, however long he has it for. I am responsible for, in the case of electric vehicles, it'll be all charging. In the case of hybrid or combustion engine vehicles, is responsible for the fuel, is responsible for parking tickets and speeding fines that might be accumulated over the time that he has the car and so on. But that the manufacturer is responsible for servicing the vehicle, that the footage remains his property, he's free to say what he wants about the car, and that the manufacturer has no influence over what he might say about the vehicle. If you have the car on a longer term loan, for example, Ludicrous Feed talks sometimes about having cars on a 3-month or 6-month loan, then your disclosure statement, which you wouldn't want to make on the screen because it takes you a long time to go through that stuff, and you want your video to be about the vehicle, but you would include it in the product description, in the video description, would be along the same lines. I've been given X vehicle by X manufacturer. I have it for a period of however long it is. I'm free to drive it wherever I want, under whatever conditions I want. I'm free to say what I want about the vehicle, and the footage that I record and upload remains my property, and the manufacturer has no editorial control or no input to what I say about the vehicle, and the footage remains mine. Now that seems to me to be a reasonably straightforward thing to do. The people who then are reviewing your content can go to those, go to the description and read those disclosure statements and make of them what they will. I'm an adult, and when I buy a new car, I am the person who makes the decision. I am responsible for my decision. I'm the one who will sign the contract, and I'm the one who will give the dealer the money and drive the car out of the showroom. It's not a case of me saying, oh, well, I watched videos by Joe Blow or Josephine Blow, and they told me this car was a good car, and I went and bought one, and it turned out to be a lemon. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you enter into a commercial arrangement that in any way might influence or might appear to influence your judgment, in other words, might be the situation where you will not pass the pub test, you should declare it. And therefore, the viewers of your content, the consumers of content, be it video or written report or whatever it is that they view, however it is that they consume your content, can take your report then as they want. They can take it with a grain of salt, or they can say, well, I can see that this bloke has integrity and has ethics and is honest, and he's given an honest and dispassionate and impartial view of this vehicle, and I have no reason to doubt that what he says about the vehicle is his honest opinion about it. Now, there are a couple of other things that come up as a result of this issue to do with integrity. If you go on a media day to a resort, and I've seen this happen with various reviewers at some stage, they've been taken to the Hunter Valley, for example, which is in New South Wales, and they've all been given a car for a period of time, and I expect that lunch is supplied by the manufacturer as part of the day. Now, I doubt that anyone's going to sell their integrity for a burger and fries and a cup of coffee, but nevertheless, if there's a situation like that where the manufacturer has provided you with lunch or meals or something like that, you should declare it. So you can say, well, I was a guest of X manufacturer at X resort, and as well as testing the car, I had lunch at the manufacturer's expense. More importantly, if you go on an overseas junket, for want of a better word, to the Shanghai Motor Show or the Berlin Motor Show or any motor show for that matter, and you are a guest of either a particular company or the organising body for the motor show, and they have paid for your travel and accommodation and meals or any part of those things, you should declare those things in your in the description. You should say, in the financial disclosure about financial details here, I was a guest of manufacturer or organisation who paid for my whatever, meals, accommodation, travel, whichever ones are applicable. So that again, the people who consume your content, whether they are people who read your reports in magazines or on websites, or they watch the videos as I do, are aware that you have this arrangement. And whilst you might insist that the video that you make belongs to you and not to the company, and the company has no input to what you say about the car and so on, and that the bloke from the car company that sits in the passenger seat with you is there to make sure you go on the right course, and is there to make sure that you understand how all the controls work and so on, is not there to in any way to influence your opinion or what you might say about the car. I feel that it's essential that you, as a reviewer, disclose any of those arrangements to the people who consume your content so that they can then make an informed judgment about your opinion. As I said, it's not a case of me saying, oh, well, I watched so-and-so's video, they said such and such was a good car, so I bought one and it turns out to be a dud. I'm an adult. I'm responsible for my own decisions there. But as part of being informed and as part of doing my research, I'm going to watch videos by various people who test a particular car and see what each one of them says about it. Somebody might say this is a strong point about it. Somebody else might say, well, I don't like that point that much. I'm not happy about that. I don't think the seats are any good, or they're not as comfortable as they ought to be. Somebody might say, well, this one uses a lot more energy than I thought it would. Somebody might say, well, this one uses less energy than I thought it would. I want all of that information at my fingertips so that when I'm looking in the showroom and I'm talking to the salesman who's going to tell me some other story, I've got in the back of my head that the people who are knowledgeable about cars and whose job is to test the car and to tell me honestly and truthfully what its strengths and weaknesses are, I want to know that they've told me that honestly and impartially, and they've not been influenced by any commercial arrangement that they may have or may later enter into with a manufacturer. Now, I want to stress again that the people that I mentioned, Car Source, Chasing Cars, Cars Guide, Car Sales, all of those people that I mentioned, anyone that I forgot to mention that I watch, I have no evidence, and I'm not suggesting that any of those people in any way have sold their integrity or have had their integrity compromised because they've gone on a junket to the Hunter Valley and had a burger and fries at lunchtime courtesy of ex-manufacturer. But, as I said, there is this thing called the pub test, and if I went down the pub and told my mates, those two blokes that tested that ute and said it was the greatest ute they'd ever driven, it was a wonderful car, good value for money and so on, they now have a deal with the same manufacturer to sell their footage for promotional purposes. My friends at the pub would say, well, that doesn't sound right, does it? They're being paid now. That doesn't sound as if it's necessarily the right thing to do. So those are my thoughts on integrity in the motor vehicle industry. And I should say, I feel that this applies to almost any other product, but motor vehicles in particular, and motorcycles for that matter. I often see people who rolled up to a dealership and said they've been given a motorcycle for the day, and they go off and ride it. I don't see anywhere in the description of the video any explanation of any arrangement they may have made with the dealer for the day. Obviously, you sign a waiver to say if you damage the bike, you're going to have to pay a $2,000 excess or something like that, like you do if you take a test ride. Whether they've just had it for a test ride that day or they've had it for a week and under what circumstances they might have had it. The same things apply whether you are testing cars or you're testing motorcycles or testing any other product for that matter. All I'm saying here is if you enter into a commercial arrangement of any sort with someone who makes a product which you are then going to review, not necessarily that product, but another product by the same company or a similar product by a different company, you should declare any interest or any commercial arrangement or any potential conflict of interest that you have so that your audience, the people who consume your content, are able to make a better and more informed judgment as to whether they should take what you say now with a grain of salt, or they should just look at it and say, well, that's that guy's honest opinion, and whatever he does, or that woman's honest opinion for that matter. I'm not trying to single out men here. That is that person's honest point of view, and I accept that that's their honest point of view, and what they do on the side has no impact or no influence on their judgment about this vehicle. Because the problem here is this: once your integrity is compromised, it is very hard to get it back again. I think, for example, one of the reasons that VW are in such a parlous situation where sales are declining, and they're talking about closing factories maybe and cutting down shifts and that sort of stuff, is that they suffered enormous reputational damage as a result of the Dieselgate scandal several years ago. Yes, they paid fines, and yes, people in the management of the company fell on their swords and so on, but they compromised their integrity. Lots of people who bought a VW thinking it was a green car and it was a clean car, and they were buying VWs because they wanted a lean green car that, made them feel good about driving a car and feel as if they were doing their bit for the environment, were led up the garden path by VW, and as a result of that, VW compromised their integrity, and they have now found it very difficult to win back. People who might have had one VW and thought, we're very happy with that brand, thought, no, I've been dudded here, somebody's conned me, I'm not going to buy another one, I'm not going to buy another VW. And that's, at least to me, in part explanation of why they are experiencing the sales problems that they are. Anyway, those are the things that I wanted to say about integrity. It is, when it's all said and done, probably the only thing that we all have is our reputation and our integrity. And if you compromise your reputation or your integrity, it's very hard to get it back. As I said, I'm not suggesting, and I'm saying it, I know for a third time in the same video, I'm not suggesting that any of the people that I mentioned, be it those journalists who sold their footage, or the journalist who does other work in the motoring industry, or any of the YouTubers that I mentioned, I'm not suggesting any of them have compromised their integrity. What I'm saying is now, in order to make sure that that is the case, take the time to put together a disclosure statement, put it in the description of your video, so that people who watch your video can look at it and say, I understand the circumstance under which you got the car, how long you've got it for, what conditions, if any, there are on your use, and what you might say about the car. And then when you give your verdict and the person is making a judgment about your report and thinking, well, this is a car for me, or that's not the car for me, they can do it with as much information as can be supplied and provided by you as an independent reviewer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you have an opinion or a comment, please leave it in the appropriate place. Remember to comment on what it is that I have said. In other words, the content of the video, rather than any assumptions that you might make about who I am or what I do or don't believe. We don't know each other. I'm happy to respond to your comment when I become aware of it. And as I said, when I become aware of it, I'll get back to you and I'll make it and I'll respond. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. I will catch you when I'm making the next motorcycling video. Enjoy your day.